Lucas Akins has had a pretty good career in English football. The right winger had to make the unique choice of choosing ballet or football at the age of 16, and he decided to opt for football. It turned out to be a pretty good decision, as he would go on to have an 18-year career in professional football. He has mainly played in the lower leagues of English football, playing for the likes of Huddersfield and Burton Albion. And, well, he was the ultimate professional. He is the ultimate professional when it comes to football, evidenced by his willingness to play any position required for his team. During his time at Burton, the winger played every single outfield position, highlighting how much of a team player Atkins is. Aged 36, as he comes to the swan song of his professional football career, he is still playing in English football's third tier for Mansfield Town, aged 36, highlighting his great work effort. His most recent match was versus Charlton Athletic, and with his club trailing, Lucas Akins was leading the comeback. It was in many ways a typical lower league match, fierce tackles and a great atmosphere created by 7,000 fans at Mansfield. Yet, there was one very abnormal subplot. Later this month, Atkins could be in prison. So what on earth is going on here? Well, join me as we take a look at this true crime story and the very, very controversial case of Lucas Atkins. Thank you to The Athletic for this idea. I saw an article on there about it. I'll put a link in the description, as that is where I've got a lot of this information from. But without further ado, let's dive into one of the most controversial cases in English football right now. The story starts in March 2022. It was a normal day, the 17th of March. Adrian Daniel, the 33-year-old, was on a normal bike ride. Daniel was cycling on Huddersfield Road in Netherton when he was hit at the junction by a Mercedes. The man in that Mercedes was Lucas Atkins. Daniel was badly injured, and sadly, 10 days after the incident, tragically passed away from the injuries he occurred in that accident. On March the 5th this year, Atkins admitted to causing the death of Adrian Daniel when his car hit the cyclist near the town of Huddersfield. Atkins admitted to causing death by careless or inconsiderate driving during a hearing at Leeds Crown Courts. However, just hours afterwards, he was selected to play for Mansfield in a goalless draw with Wigan Athletic, and he has since played a further 4 times for the club, who have refused to officially comment on the matter. Mansfield have another 4 matches when Atkins could be selected before he will learn his sentence at the Crown Court on April the 24th. According to the Sentencing Council, the maximum penalty for causing death by careless or inconsiderate driving is 5 years in jail. That maximum term is usually reserved for cases where the blame is exceptionally high. As for this case, it is unsure at this stage what sentence he will receive, although a guilty reduce the sentence by up to a third. The offender will also be banned from driving and have to take an extended test to get their licence back. The Mansfield manager, Nigel Glough's last public comments on Atkins' case came on March the 11th, when asked about social media criticism of his decision to keep playing him. "I don't see social media, so I haven't heard or seen one thing," he said. "If I start picking the team based on what is said on social media, I'll be going away from my main principles. It's incredibly difficult, but he has been dealing with it for the last 2 or 3 years. All we can do is give him every bit of support." It is a tragic story, particularly for Daniel's family, and the implications for Atkins could be seismic. Yet, watching him during the Charlton game, you would have never known it. After the final whistle, Atkins applauded the fans, shook hands with the opposition players, embracing a couple of them. He walked off the field deep in conversation with his teammate Caelan Vickers, before high-fiving a steward and then disappearing down the tunnel. Atkins may be in the twilight of his career, but he remains a significant figure for Mansfield. He has started 25 league matches this season and has helped re-establish the club in English football's 3rd tier. This is their first season at that level since 2003, and it is likely they will remain in the division next season, sitting 8 points clear of the relegation places. Atkins has been a part of their stability, and when he reached his 700th career game in February, before the case became public, Clough praised the midfielder. The Atkins case has brought a rare and unwelcome burst of publicity to Mansfield, a club that has spent most of its 128-year history in the lower reaches of the Football League, and firmly in the shadows of bigger local rivals such as Nottingham Forest and the 2 Sheffield clubs, United and Wednesday. But despite the club's virtual silence on the situation, Atkins' continued presence on the team has remained a contentious issue among supporters and raises a bigger question on whether he should be allowed to play when he has a pending prison sentence. For some, it is clear he should not be available. The argument is it would be immoral to allow somebody about to be convicted for causing the death of an individual to still be playing professional football. This is, of course, the stance Daniel's family take, as it must be very painful for them to see Atkins' name being chanted by Mansfield fans, and fans cheering when he scores or takes on his man or provides an assist, and seeing him happy on the pitch, clapping fans, jumping around after wins, whilst they grieve their loss. For others, playing Atkins does not represent an ethical red line crossed. The argument is there is no reason for him not to do his job until he is sentenced. In the same way normal people will be treated. If a postman was convicted for a crime, whilst waiting for his sentencing, they should not be banned for being a postman until they're sentenced. By the law, he is free to continue working, and due to the radio silence from both Mansfield and Atkins on the situation, fans have been left in the dark. Hence, it can be argued that calls to remove him from a Mansfield squad are not fair, as we simply do not know enough about has won a handful of international caps for Grenada, who he plays for through his mother. His latest international appearance came against Russia in March the 19th, and he played the full game against Charlton last week. It is not the first time, though, a footballer has played for his club after pleading guilty to an offence. Last month, it emerged that Welsh side Barry Town's vice-captain, 24-year-old Evan Press, played for them after pleading guilty to dealing cocaine. The club told Wales Online they only became aware of his crime on the day he was sentenced to 2.5 years in jail. Former West Ham and Chelsea defender Kurt Zouma continued to play in the Premier League while awaiting trial on animal abuse charges. He later pleaded guilty to kicking and slapping his cats, but continued to be selected for West Ham. He was sentenced to 180 years of 180 hours, of community service. In March 2015, midfielder Adam Johnson was suspended by his club Sunderland following his arrest on suspicion of having sexual activity with an underage girl. He was charged a month later, but played regularly for the club while on bail, having initially pleaded not guilty. He was sacked by Sunderland, though, in February 2016 when he changed his plea to guilty and sentenced to 6 years in prison. However, the key distinction in these cases, compared to Atkins, is the plea. All of the above mentioned played for their clubs, as they did not plead guilty. Hence, the clubs can argue guilty until proven innocence. However, due to the severity of such a case, and the plea by Atkins, moral questions surround Mansfield. Causing the death of another person is one of the most serious crimes someone can be charged with. It is very different to Kurt Zouma's case, for example, who, while he did commit very, very bad acts, no one can dispute Atkins' case is much more severe. So to select Atkins for a game on the day he pleaded guilty was likely ethically wrong. Before that point, when he pleaded guilty, it is more of a grey area, and that is where the innocent until proven guilty likely shields Mansfield from any sort of ethical blame. But once Atkins pleaded guilty, there is a strong argument that he should not have been playing. If he was playing for a Premier League club and pleaded guilty to causing the death of another person, he would have definitely not been picked. However, in the Football League, he is likely not been subject to the same level of scrutiny. As for example, I'm sure a lot of you listening right now have probably never heard of this case. Last year, Championship club Norwich City continued to select Republic of Ireland defender Shane Duffy after he was charged with and admitted to drink driving. The club launched an internal disciplinary case, but the centre-back was not suspended and remained part of the squad. He was subsequently banned from driving for 3 years and ordered to pay £27,000. Under most standard playing contracts, Mansfield would have been entitled, at this current stage when he pleaded guilty, to terminate Atkins' contract for gross misconduct. decided not to. They will likely wait until he is sentenced, and then it is very likely terminate his contract. But for now, he remains a Mansfield player. That being said, it is unlikely Atkins will be a Mansfield player next season either way. His contract expires in the summer, and regardless of his sentence, it is not known if the club will offer him a new one. Clough, who also worked with Atkins at Burton, clearly appreciate what he brings on the field. Clough said in a press conference that playing 700 professional games was a great testament to his fitness as much as anything, and his attitude, calling him a team player. This may be the case, but the off-field cloud over Lucas Atkins still remains. And while Atkins waits to hear what form of punishment he will face, life and football, I guess, goes on. So, what is your opinion on this situation? Because it is a massive ethical dilemma, and you have heard both sides of the story. On the one hand, you can argue Atkins should be allowed to play until he is sentenced to jail, as currently he is not a convicted criminal, and yet to be legally sentenced to committing a crime. However, the other side is Lucas Akins has pleaded guilty to causing the death of another human being, and therefore should not be played, as while he's not been sentenced yet, he has admitted to committing a very, very serious crime, similar to how Adam Johnson was allowed to play for Sunderland until he admitted and took the guilty plea for committing very serious crime, and his contract was terminated. But look, as I said, it is a very interesting and very controversial ethical dilemma, this Lucas Atkins case. We'll see what happens. We'll see if Mansfield continue to play him, and what happens in that sentencing if he does go to jail, which is looking likely he will. And if he does, what happens with his footballing career and his Mansfield career, and will they finally comment on the situation? But there we go, that is a relaxing story, a true crime story about Lucas Atkins. Let me know your thoughts, I really do want to hear it, because as I said, it's quite a controversial dilemma here. Do you think Mansfield are right and should be allowed to still play Lucas Atkins in League One? Hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you have, please do leave a like, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in another